Good morning and welcome everyone to today's PAM Wellness webinar about stress reduction skills in practice. It's really lovely that so many of you are able to join us on this day before our nice long bank holiday weekend. And hopefully you're all in places where you can at least see through your own window the blue sky and the sunshine. So that's a little bit more promising for this weekend than earlier in the week with the forecast as well. And hopefully, often what we find is that many people report feeling a little happier when the sun is shining as well. So I think that's probably quite poignant given the topic that we are covering today. My name's Kate Martin. I'm Head of Psychological Services at PAM Wellness, and I'm here today with my colleague, Nina Parson. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Good morning on this nice sunny day, as Kate mentioned. I hope it's sunny where you are too. I am Nina Parson. I'm Director of Psychology for the Neurodiversity Division here at PAM. And as Kate mentioned, we're going to go through and talk to you today about stress reduction skills in practice. And that's also looking at it from the perspective of someone who is also neurodivergent. So looking forward to sharing some content with you this morning, and back over to you, Kate.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you everyone who's joined us today for this taster session about stress reduction skills in practice. So we are going to be looking today at a number of areas, just kind of very top level in terms of what is stress and how we can, what things we can all do ourselves to help reduce our stress. The session covers some of our training around how to support stress reduction in the workplace for both neurotypical and neurodiverse colleagues within the workplace as well. We've got the Q&A function, so if you have any questions, then please do make use of the Q&A chat function. You can leave questions in there, and we will, if we've not covered them throughout the webinar, then we will answer those at the end as well. And if people are obviously interested in any of our training and workshops, then we'll provide details on our available courses and how those can be arranged at the end of the session as well. So thank you all very much for joining us. So just in this first section, I'm just going to give just a very brief introduction to stress awareness and in terms of what we are talking about stress, and then just to have a little look at one of our means and methods of reducing stress. Then Nina will talk about stress from a neurodiverse perspective. And then we will have a look at further tools and techniques that we can use to help manage stress that we experience as well. So when we are thinking about stress, then this is a really handy visual to look at. So stress is a normal part of our day-to-day lives. It's something that we experience all the time, and it is quite normal. However, as you can see here, we can move where we are experiencing chronic stress, high level, excessive stress, where actually it's harder to manage, or we've got so many different stressors that it becomes, none of which are necessarily huge, but the combination of so many of them can have a negative impact on how we feel as well. And often we experience this stress in our bodies and our minds. We have a physical response to it. as well as, you know, an emotional response, and also how we think about stress as well, and the type of thoughts we have will have an impact, again, on our emotions and on our physical responses as well. And different people will talk about the different physical and emotional responses they have to stress. You know, often it's physically it's associated around the stomach and the gut, but other people can also experience those physical stresses in other ways. And so that brings us on really nicely to one of the main techniques that we can all engage in terms of what stress management tools that we can employ, and that's breathing. You know, breathing is a natural process. It's something that we all do all the time, completely unconsciously most of the time. However, we can also choose to consciously change our breathing rate and how we are physically breathing in our bodies. Frequently, when we are feeling stressed and anxious and nervous, we can find that we have quite shallow breathing, which means it's concentrated towards the very top part of our bodies. And actually, what we want to try and experience is that deeper breathing, where we're breathing more deeply, we're expanding our lungs, we're breathing into our bellies, so that we're experiencing a calmer state. So what's happening there is, by focusing on our breathing and just being conscious of it, we are helping to switch ourselves from the sympathetic side of our nervous system, which is the fight-flight response, which is triggered when by stress, and we are helping to balance that out by reactivating the parasympathetic side of our nervous system. And that's what we want, is to be in that optimal place during the day to be able to perform our personal tasks, our work tasks, all the things that we need to do. We want to be in that optimal performance state, and feel that we have a balance between it. So what I thought would be a really useful thing to do is to have just a little go at one of the breathing techniques there. I mean, I've listed 4 on this slide, and these are only, you know, examples of many different breathing techniques out there, but these are some of the most popular ones that people report experiencing benefits from. I will say, though, that, you know, for some people, you know, when they change their breathing pattern, it can actually be uncomfortable and unpleasant. And so if that's something that you do experience and you know you experience, then don't be involved in the next activity. Or if it's something you experience, then please do stop and, you know, seek medical guidance before continuing with any form of breathing activity, because there could be a physical reason why you're having those experiences. So box breathing is a really common breathing exercise that many people report helps them when they notice they're experiencing stress. And, you know, I've just put a little image of a square on the screen for you. And the idea behind box breathing, and you can find, you know, wherever you are, you know, a shape that is you know, looks like a square. Some people like to close their eyes, others like to follow the outline of a square as they're doing the breathing. But the idea is that you're breathing in, say for a count of 4, you hold for a count of 4, you breathe out for a count of 4, you hold for a count of 4, and you go round the cycle again. So let's have wherever you sat or stood, you know, just make sure you're sat or stood comfortably. You've got your feet, both your feet flat on the floor. You're just beginning to draw your attention inwards, noticing what is going on for you. If you want to close your eyes, then do so, or you can just follow along the outline of the square on the screen. And just, take a relaxed breath in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. You could just, continue doing that at your own pace. If the 4 count isn't something that you're comfortable with, you could shorten it to a count of 3, or you can extend it to a longer count, a count of 5, a count of 6. Everyone's got slightly different breathing patterns and capacity for doing that, and so it's about working with your own capacity. But what does help is just to start to introduce a sense of calm in our bodies, our minds, and then also with our emotions as well. So hopefully everyone's feeling a little bit calmer as we move into the next session, and I'm going to hand over to Nina to talk about neurodiversity and stress and some considerations in relation to neurodiverse people in relation to stress. So Nina, all yours.
Thank you very much, Kate. That was I feel very relaxed now. I hope everyone else does as well, having just done those breathing exercises. So I just really wanted to put the spotlight on neurodivergent individuals, because as we all experience stress, sometimes the stress that they can face is quite unique to them, and can obviously impact well-being as well. And research has shown that neurodivergent individuals are more susceptible to experiencing stress due to various factors, including difficulties with sensory processing, social interactions, and executive functioning, which refers to a set of mental processing and cognitive skills that enable people to plan, organise, prioritise, problem solve, and regulate their behaviour to achieve goals and complete tasks effectively. And the increased stressors can significantly impact on their mental health and overall well-being, leading to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and other mental health conditions. So it's really crucial to acknowledge and address these stressors to support those neurodivergent individuals. Next slide, please, Kate. So I just wanted to share with you some statistics regarding neurodiversity and mental health. Approximately 70% of autistic adults in the UK have mental health problems such as anxiety, depression, obsession, compulsive disorder, which often starts off as from stressful events which continue to go on through their lives and can then lead to these underlying mental health challenges. Adults with ADHD in the UK are at higher risk of developing mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, and substance abuse, and that was from the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence. The British Dyslexia Association has found that dyslexics are high risk of mental health problems, and the Dyspraxia Foundation found that those with dyspraxia have higher risks of mental health problems as well. So often, the underlying stressors from day-to-day life can then manifest and become something more. So the idea is, trying and support these. But I think it's good to identify what some of these stressors are in the workplace, so then we can try and mitigate against those. So can I have the next slide, please, Kate? So there are a number of stressors related to work which can impact particularly with neurodivergent individuals, and it can be everything from challenges with daily commute to work, particularly during rush hour. For some neurodivergent individuals, having anxiety and being in a crowded, noisy environment, such as on a bus or a train first thing in the morning, or placed in situations outside of their control, such as changes to their travel through disruption. These are all uncontrolled events which can impact on stress levels before they've even got to the office. The office environment itself, we hear lots of reports from neurodivergent employees that we see in our division of PAM who really struggle with working in an office environment for a number of reasons. But up there as one of the most common is due to the open plan layout, hot desking, which limits the availability of quiet spaces, or in some cases there are no quiet spaces at all. And often we know that individuals who are neurodivergent have high levels of sensory sensitivity, noise in particular, and that can include things in an office such as the air conditioning unit, the constant hum of voices, which can be incredibly distracting, and there doesn't seem to be a place to go to sort of decompress and get away from all that environmental stimulus. Lighting as well is one of the most common of the areas of challenge that we see when people report the environment in which they're working in. And again, this is to do around sensitivity to light, particularly fluorescent lighting. And whilst some offices have lighting which is adjustable and have individual controls, there are many offices which still have bright fluorescent strip lighting with no control over brightness. And some people who are particularly sensitive to light can find this environment very overwhelming and incredibly stressful to have to work in, day out. Many people, you know, they have consequences of that is that they can suffer from headaches, migraines, visual stress can also co-occur alongside that. Next slide, please. So other examples of stressors that are commonly reported from our clients include working in an environment which is constantly changing demands, such as the need to pivot to meet deadlines, changing client demands or approach to a project. This can be particularly overwhelming for those people who are neurodivergent, who prefer perhaps structure and a more predictable routine in their day-to-day work. And in meetings, some neurodivergent individuals can really struggle to provide a succinct answer to questions if asked directly on the spot, which often results in them feeling sort of stressed because they know that they're not going to come across as well and maybe sound as eloquent. And so they may even freeze on the spot because they're unsure about how to best answer those questions in the moment. Other aspects of roles which can leave people feeling overwhelmed. It could be due to the size of the task that they have to undertake, such as reviewing and summarising technical or legal or policy documents, particularly if they're under deadlines to produce that information quickly. And for some, a lack of adjustments can cause unnecessary stress and anxiety, such as not having specialist software to support with administrative or writing tasks, so everything is just more effortful in their day-to-day work. And obviously poor job fit, for example, someone who has ADHD being tasked with mundane repetitive tasks with no variety, this can lead to, you know, and we see it a lot, reports of feeling stressed when faced with completing the same task day in, day out, because they're just not getting that variety and stimulation from which can come from that. Next slide, please. So I think it's crucial to acknowledge and address the stresses that are faced by neurodivergent individuals in the workplace. And it's really important to find ways that they can try and support themselves and that the organisations can help to support them as well. And that really leads to things like ability to control the actual stressor itself, the awareness of what their triggers are so that they can avoid or manage those better, removing those triggers, and ability to balance demands as well. And some specific self-care and stress management strategies can include managing sensory overload by utilising, for example, sensory rooms or designated quiet areas within an office space, having noise cancelling headphones or earplugs to try and reduce auditory stimulation, even fidget toys or a comfort object for tactile or visual grounding, planning travel at less crowded times, on choose less busy routes where possible. And as we've just experienced with Kate, practicing deep breathing and grounding techniques to manage anxiety and stress can be a really useful technique. And also engage in mindfulness and relaxation exercises. Kate's mentioned some of this already, and there's obviously free apps available that you can do this in your own time as well. And also other things is you can't underestimate the importance of community and connecting with like-minded individuals who can support through having been part of specific community groups, for example, and neurodivergent individuals can provide support to each other to help understand and share experiences. And it's important that they're able to implement some of these self-care strategies and feel that they can work therefore more effectively with having the support that they need and fostering those strategies and knowing what works well for them in certain situations. But I think it's important to recognise that everybody's has individual needs and their requirements, their stress levels, as Kate pointed out in that graph earlier, it can differ from individual to individual, and it's important that those strategies are tailored, and there's things that organisations can do to help support neurodivergent individuals to kind of maintain and reduce those stressors in their day-to-day work life. And that could be things such as working with specialist coaches. It could be going through counselling in the AP. If you wouldn't mind just going on to the next slide, Kate. And so there are a number of other ways that we can try and limit feelings of stress at work through a workplace needs assessment. Working with an assessor, they can identify a range of support options that could include things like technology support, which carry out tasks and using technology to monitor stress levels, such as a smartwatch to keep ahead of noticing when you're starting to feel stressed, and then you can try and move away from those stressors or try and implement some of the techniques that we've shared today. And also there's more person-centered support, as I said before, with a specialist coach who can work with our neurodivergent employees, and also through counselling as well, which is obviously something that we offer here at PAM. I'm going to hand you back to Kate now.
Thank you, Nina. I think it's really fascinating to think about what things within our working environment and our job roles can have an impact. And I think a lot of what you've talked about can at times also impact neurotypical people as well. And I think that's just something that we all need to be aware of, and that actually these things can change throughout our life cycle as well. Or for women, it could be related to time of the month and fluctuations like that, where we can also be much more sensitive at different times of the month as well. So it's really important to increase our own self-awareness of how we are feeling, how we are managing with life, and with the we have to be realistic. There are always going to be stresses in our life, whether that's work related or personal related. There are things that are going to be there that can potentially cause stress. So, as Nina's already mentioned, one of the techniques that many people do find useful is mindfulness, because what it's doing, there's a similarity and a crossover with breathing, but with mindfulness, again, it's about helping people to focus in the present moment, or the here and now, bringing our attention and focus back here. Because often what we find, particularly when we're feeling anxious or we're feeling stressed, that we can our minds get triggered to either think about what ifs going forwards into the future, or ruminating on things that may have happened in the past as well. But actually, it's only in the here and now, in this moment in time, that we can actually do anything. And so just by sitting still or walking slowly, or lying down, because actually mindfulness can be done in many, many different ways, then we just start to pay attention to what's going on inside of ourselves, where we feel sensations in our body, if any emotions are coming up for us, if any thoughts are coming up for us as well. And the reason we've got this image of clouds here is because actually our thoughts come and go, our emotions come and go. Sometimes some of them hang around for a little bit longer. We can think of them as stickier ones, a little bit like Velcro when they want to attach themselves. But actually, you know, most of our thoughts come and go, most of our emotions come and go, and they pass. And this is, you know, the pleasant ones that we have, and also the ones that are maybe a little bit more unpleasant as well. And if we just sit and we notice those thoughts and those emotions and those bodily sensations, we start to name them. You know, got tingling in my foot. I notice that I'm thinking negatively about, you know, how much work I've got to get completed by the end of the day. I'm feeling anxious about it. If we start noticing those things, naming them, we can start to see that we are not those things, but they are things that we are noticing and we're experiencing. And we can do something about them. So one of the things that people often find helpful is to use their senses. And this is where the grounding aspect comes in that Nina mentioned as well, where we start to notice and look around us and name 5 green things that you can see around you. As an example, you could then, you know, see if you can hear 4 things. What 4 sounds can you hear? One of those is going to be myself talking at the moment. You can think about what 3 smells you can smell, you know, 2 things you can touch, and 1 thing that you can taste. And this is again helping us to bring into this present moment in terms of our experiences. Another area that could be really useful is movement. So being able to move regularly, move our bodies regularly is really, really important. Lots of evidence out there about movement, about exercise, and about walking in terms of their ability to help reduce stress by releasing the stress responses that we've got stored in our body. They can help boost creativity and cognitive function. They can increase energy. And I've experienced this myself. You know, I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this. You know, at the end of a long working day, you feel tired. Actually, you know, have I got energy to go out and do something else, to go and exercise, to move, when really all I want to go and do is kind of like slump on the sofa and veg out, etc. Actually, what I've found by experimenting is even if I just go out for a walk 10 minutes, it helps to give me a little bit more of an energy boost as I go into my evening to be able to do things for myself, as opposed to just feeling exhausted after working all day. And so it's really worth, you know, even if it's just getting out for 10 minutes movement or dancing around for 10 minutes to some of your favorite tunes, etc. There are lots of different ways of moving. Also, there's lots of evidence in terms of how it can help us with our sleep. And obviously, if we're sleeping better, we feel better, we feel able to manage things better. That helps to reduce our stress responses as well. We're able to cope with things. Whilst, you know, moving inside is great, or getting outside, you know, if we've got the opportunity to get into green spaces, then, you know, there's an increasing amount of evidence to show how, you know, connecting with nature, seeing trees and plants and flowers, helps us all to feel better and to reduce our stress responses as well. I think this is also why, you know, for me, my favourite types of flowers are spring flowers, because this is the time when we've got new life emerging after the long, dark, cold winter, and we're getting those splashes of colour coming up, that new life coming up. And it's always something that I notice every year in terms of, you know, that beauty of renewed life arriving as well. And there's evidence with this as well about how it helps us to manage depressive symptoms, and it improves our overall health as well. So our physical health, not just our mental health and well-being. And then the other one I just want to touch on before we finish today is thinking about, how we organize our working day and how we build in time to reflect on it as well. So, everyone's going to be having different types of tasks. Some people might be very much desk-based, others might be, actually having only a little bit amount of time for desk activities and then going out and doing other type of activities as well. But it's really important to think about how we are planning our activities and tasks and breaks. However, I do acknowledge that, that's not always the case for everyone, because for some people's roles, you're going to be in a role where actually you're kind of timetabled. You are required to be in a particular place doing a particular thing at a particular time, and you have to take your breaks when you're designated to take them. So I appreciate that for some of us, we've maybe got a little bit more control over how we manage that versus others. But equally, even when our days are set out, it's useful to be able to have that awareness at the start of the day and go, okay, what am I doing today? What do I need to get done? What is expected of me? How am I going to achieve that? And then at the end of the day, it's really useful to, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, to reflect on what you've achieved that day. Because many of us have what is regarded as a negativity bias. And so it's only the kind of the bad things, the negative things that maybe stick in our mind. This is the thoughts that can be stickier. And we forget the things that we've achieved. Now, sometimes it can be that actually what we set out to do that day, we haven't achieved, but that's because we had another priority and we had to prioritize that and shuffle the other stuff to another day. But we still need to sit down and acknowledge what we've managed to achieve that day. And it's really, really important thing to do. And it connected with that sense of thinking about things that we're grateful for as well. And then it's also thinking about, is there things that we can learn from the day? Are there things where we think, could I do this in a different way? Would that have a different outcome for me? And then looking at what are the things that I need to be noting down to be doing tomorrow. And actually, by taking a few minutes to do that, what we find is that that's not then interrupting our evenings or even our sleep, where, and I experience it quite frequently. So I need to actually start to do some of what I'm talking about, where I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, I need to remember to do that. Or did I make a note of doing that? I mean, this can be work tasks, it can be personal tasks. I can see Nina smiling, so I think she can relate to that one as well.
Yes.
And what I do these days is I keep a Post-it pad and a pen on my bedside table, because actually, if I don't write it down, my mind is then trying to hold on to it because it's worrying that it's going to forget it if I go back to sleep. So I've found that actually, if I write it down, I'm not going to be trying to hold on to it because I know I've got it written down as a reminder for the morning. But it's all these little things that we have to do, because our brains can be tricky creatures at times. And it is very much worth looking at what, as we've been talking about, what those triggers can be for us, and whether there are different tools and techniques that we can employ, whether that's using noise cancelling headphones, if you're able to within your workplace, whether that's temperature control, whether that's light, whether that, whatever it might be. It's looking at, what are the things that we can do to help support ourselves and our colleagues, so that they can then, focus in the productive part of their working day, because that's what we all want, and that helps to give us a sense of achievement at the end of our working days as well, is that, we have managed to achieve things and get things done within that day. So I think, just to summarize, it's really important to think that stress is a normal physiological response to stress triggers, and that we can support ourselves to manage our responses. Neurodiverse colleagues can be more sensitive to stress triggers in the workplace, and also in their own homes as well. And so it's important to have that awareness that, you know, we might not be bothered by the overhead lights, but some of our colleagues might be. Some of our colleagues might find it harder to concentrate when there's lots of noise going on, when they're needing to focus on a task. And so we do need to have that awareness about these types of things. And we can all refresh our stress management tools, to refresh them in our toolkit, or to introduce and experiment with new ones as well. And I think it's really important, because sometimes, I mean, we are creatures of habit. We like to do the same things in the same ways and have the same routines. And so actually it's important sometimes just to take a pause and go, is this technique or is this tool still working for me? And maybe it is, and that is great. But also sometimes we realise that maybe it's not having that same impact as it was a few years ago. And so we can look at different tools and techniques that we can use. And hopefully, you know, some of the things that we've talked about today will be of use for people, and some of you are going to go away hopefully and experiment with them, because it's only through experimenting with different tools and techniques that we start to learn what might work for us and what doesn't. And if you try something and it doesn't work for you, then that's okay. We just try a different tool and technique instead. And that's why we've got so many of them. This slide's just touching on some of our other workshops that are related to stress management, you know, how we can develop that resilience and self-care. We've got workshops specifically looking at mindfulness, also ones looking to support managers in terms of managing stress and stress risk assessments in the workplace. We've got a series of neurodiversity workshops to increase awareness and understanding. And so a number there, and also many other topics that we cover. So if you are new to PAM and you've not a current PAM client, then you can get in touch with our business support colleagues, who will be able to support you with finding out more about our training offer and our other services. If you're an existing PAM client and workshop user, then you'll be able to access our existing catalogue through the website link. But I'm also aware that we may have PAM clients who are not current workshop users, and so that would be your contract manager getting in touch with the account manager to look at having those services added for you as well. There are obviously lots of other resources out there which you can Google and you can have a look at. And for those of you who've maybe joined late or had any issues with sound, etc., then you know, this webinar will be added to our YouTube channel. It's not going to be added today, so we're coming up to the Easter weekend, so you know it will be added by the end of next week for those of you who want to catch it again or share with colleagues. And I think we're just